All right, I'm going to make the screen bigger. All right, what I'm going through today is the cookie notes. This sheet is found in this week's folder. I think it's towards the bottom of the sheet, or excuse me, the bottom of the folder. You'll find that sheet. So if you want to fill it in as we go. Otherwise, I'm going to post this into that folder when I'm done today. So right after class, I can probably put it in there. So if you miss the answers, usually in class, we're watching a DVD and we fill it in and then I will add to it. I'm just going to come back. Is everybody able to see that if I make it that big? Does that work? And obviously I'm going to be saying it out loud, so. And I see Adrian came on, see Jillian, there's a couple more people I'm going to take attendance here. Who else did I not get yet? Ryan, Tate. Okay. All right, I'm going to make this bigger and start, and then I'll be talking about the cookies too. So baking is like a chemical experiment. Chemical experiment is the first blank. The recipe is the formula and the ingredients are the chemicals. How the ingredients are mixed, shaped, and baked gives the recipe its unique flavor, texture, and appearance. And that's true for most cookies or most baking. It is a chemistry. How do the ingredients come together? What makes that chemical reaction to make the cookies, as we'll learn about as we learn about function of ingredients. Some of those are in this today and some will be in next week. 6 ingredients that you need for cookies. And those of you that have made cookies, this is not anything new. Flour, sugar, fats, eggs, flavorings, and leavening agents. And as we go through those different ones, if you've never heard the word leavening agents, that's coming up here. 2 qualities of sugar. So properties or functions of sugar, it adds obviously flavor. We know that in anything we make. It's going to give us some sweet flavor. And it also makes our products brown. So that's what's going to turn your cookies brown in the oven or your cake, whatever you're making. Those are the properties of sugar. Leavening agents, leavening means to rise. So baking soda, baking powder are the 2 that you'd use in cookies. You can't interchange them. So if the recipe calls for a teaspoon of baking soda and you don't have it at home, you can't go, well, baking powder will work. It won't, because baking soda needs a acid of some type to make a chemical reaction, where baking powder just needs a water. As we learn about function of ingredients next week in quick breads, baking soda, like in banana bread, for example, needs an acid like either buttermilk or sour milk to make it activate. There are 2 different fats that are used, or you're supposed to name 2 different fats that you can use in cookies. Butter, oil, shortening, margarine. Margarine is not as good to use in a cookie because it has a little bit more moisture content, which then sometimes you need to add a little bit more flour. It will give your recipe more of a stickiness to it, if that makes sense. The purpose of an egg in a recipe for cookies is a binder. Eggs, as we will learn in the next couple of weeks here, have many properties. But in a cookie, it would be to bind your ingredients together. Then you saw the word flavorings. If it was in the chocolate chip cookie recipe, your flavorings would be vanilla and chocolate chips. And there's flavorings sometimes are also called extracts, so like vanilla extract. There's many different flavorings. There is almond extract, peppermint, lemon, lots of different flavorings that you might have in your cupboard at home. 8, the process of softening fat with sugars is creaming, which we already had on our first set of cooking terms. 9, to bake great cookies, make sure the oven has been preheated and the racks are placed in the middle of the oven. Preheated, you always have to preheat your oven, and every oven is a little bit different. If you were in our classroom, it takes about 6 minutes to get ours to preheat. The reason you want to have a rack in the middle of the oven is so that the heat moves around the pan, generates around your pan. Now you can start one pan of cookies on the bottom, and then about halfway through or so, you can raise it up and put the second pan in. But if you put both pans in at the same time, you're going to have to be juggling them back and forth because the heat won't circulate the pan as well. 10, why is it important to pay attention so that the recipe's directions about how far apart the cookies should be so they don't spread together? There's been a couple people that already made cookies last night or yesterday, and there was one girl that I did make that comment. It looked like she put all the dough onto one pan. You have to remember they're going to spread, and usually I say go 3 across and 4 down on a regular cookie sheet. Now obviously we have some bigger ones in our classroom that you could do 15 on a sheet because they are going to spread as they bake. They're going to come down a little bit. What's the most popular bar cookie? That would be brownies. How does a bar cookie differ from a drop cookie? Well, obviously bar cookies are in a pan. 2 advantages to making a refrigerator cookie. And at the bottom of this, it talks about the different types of cookies. Refrigerator cookies are very similar to the cookies that you can buy in the refrigerator department at the grocery store, where they're already in the dough and like in a tube. That would be a refrigerator cookie. You can slice them off. It says you can freeze them and slice when you need them. You can eat when you need them, and they're more convenient. What type of cookie is a peanut butter cookie? That's a molded cookie, similar to what the Snickerdoodles recipe is. Molded means you have to shape them in your hand. So you roll them in a ball. For our Snickerdoodles, you roll them in a ball, and then you roll them in cinnamon and sugar. Why should crisp cookies not be stored with soft cookies? Your crisp cookies will become soft, and some people like crisp cookies and some people like to have them more soft. You know, it's kind of your preference. And then there are 6 different types of cookies, kind of as a summary here at the bottom. The molded cookie we just talked about. The chocolate chip cookies would be a drop cookie, and I usually take 2 spoons, take a little bit of my dough on my spoon, and then I take my other spoon and use it to get the cookie dough off that spoon onto my cookie sheet. You could, if you watched video, the clips, they use like what looks like an ice cream scoop, a scoop that you could put onto your cookie sheet. The bar cookie, making the cookies in the pan. Rolled, most of the time we think of probably sugar cookies or a gingerbread cookie where you roll out the dough and then you take some cutters and make your cookies. Refrigerator, I mentioned that that's usually a dough that you stick in the refrigerator so it gets a little bit harder, and then you can just slice it off and bake them. And then the last one is press cookie, and some of you might have a cookie press at home. That's a butter stiff dough because you need it more stiff because it's going to come through a tube. And at the bottom of the tube, there are different, it depends on what kind of cookie press you have, but they have different discs in the press that you can make. Oh, they look like little flowers, or maybe they look like stars. So there's different designs you can make. Now, I know I went through that really fast, and like I said, I will post this, but I'm just going to come back for a second here and ask any questions on any of that. Any questions or comments on any of that before I go through the recipes? All right, then let's see if I can get this to come up. Oh, there we go. So I brought up both Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies and the snickerdoodles. Excuse me. These are the two recipes that we make in class. I'm only asking you to do one of the recipes. I can sure do both if you want to, but I should tell you that the Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies is cut in half. The reason it's cut in half because if we were in the classroom, we only have about 45 minutes to actually make the cookies and then bake them in the oven. So it makes about 20 cookies, I would say. So about 2 pans. 20. You could stretch it to 24 if you made kind of a smaller cookie. And I see when I copy and paste, the white sugar got up next to the butter. So I'll just go through this. A half a cup of butter or margarine. I like to use butter in my cookies, but if you use margarine, you might need, like I said, a little bit more flour. A half a cup is a stick, so that's really nice. You don't have to measure that out because you already know that half a cup of butter is a stick. Then you have this weird measurement, 3/8 cup of white sugar and 3/8 cup of brown sugar. And the reason, again, that that's a weird measurement, because I had to cut it in half. So then you need to convert it into tablespoons. So 3/8 of a cup is actually 6 tablespoons, or 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons. So it's a little tricky unless you decide you're going to double it and make, about 3 to 4 dozen cookies. You can, and then that would be 3/4 of a cup. Then there's an egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, and this is 1 full cup and another 1/4 of a cup. It kind of jumps funny when you type it on the computer. So 1 full cup of flour and another 1/4. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. There's our leavening. You need a little bit of flavor. Half a teaspoon of salt. And then I use semi-sweet. That's usually what people use, but you could use milk chocolate as well. There's different chocolates that you can use. So you'll preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And you can do this recipe by hand or the electric mixer. I usually do my chocolate chip cookies by hand, but by no means do you have to. So if you have an upright mixer, like we have the KitchenAids in our room, or you have a hand mixer that's electric, go ahead and use it. Or you could use a wooden spoon. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my stick of butter and my 2 sugars, the white and the brown sugar, into my bowl. And I'm just going to mix that up to cream it together, kind of get it fluffy looking. And then I'm going to add my egg and my vanilla, and then I'll mix that together. And then I stir in the dry ingredients, which would be my flour, baking soda, salt. When I have that all mixed together, I'll add my chocolate chips, and then I drop them by spoon on an ungreased cookie sheet. The recipe should always tell you if you need to grease it or if it's ungreased. And then 8 to 12 minutes. It usually takes about 10. You have to watch them. You may, like I said, want to start one pan, and then maybe about 5 minutes or so, you could raise it to the top and put your second pan in. These are drop cookies. So again, like I said, you could drop them with a spoon, or you could use a scoop if you have that. I'd go about 3 across, 4 down, because they will spread. They aren't going to spread as much as a snickerdoodle cookie is, but they will spread a little bit. If you think your dough is too sticky, you can always add a little bit of flour, but you don't want to get too much so you have a dry dough, because it's kind of a in between. You don't want it real sticky, but you don't want it dry either. And those of you that have made cookies kind of know what that consistency is, but those of you that haven't, sometimes I notice that it can be a little bit sticky. It's usually more sticky if you use margarine because of the water content. The other choice, you could do snickerdoodles, and by all means I should say these are the 2 we make in class. Again, if you want to make peanut butter cookies, you want to make some sugar cookies, whatever cookie you want to make is fine.